Let's go ahead and get started. So again, welcome everyone to EPEW 2021. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Shelby and I will be moderating today's session with the help of Linda. We are on the EPEW committee and we are very excited to have you all here with us as we assemble together to learn and leave as family. Today we have a nationally recognized superhero with us, Cindi Chase. The session today is how to reach and teach all students in an inclusive environment and help them find their superpower. A few things before we get started. We are going to attempt to keep our cameras and microphones muted during our presentation in order to avoid any interruptions. We're using Zoom for this session, and sometimes it doesn't really work the way we want it to. So we ask that you please be patient. If we have any major issues, we will make sure to contact you ASAP. During today's session, if you have a question, please make sure to use the chat feature. Cindi is asked to have her questions answered at the end of today's presentation. Just a reminder, if you're making any posts on social media, we ask that you tag EPEW and also use our hashtags EPEW 2021 and EPEW family. It is my great pleasure to introduce one of our EPEW family members and amazing superheroes, Miss Cindi Chase.
Thanks, Shelby. Wow. And stuff. I give a big round of applause to everyone. Thanks for coming and stuff. I am going to share my screen and get started because as I was practicing, I'm going, ooh, I got a lot of stuff I want to share with everyone. You get so excited. And so let me get that going. Perfect. And then I'll go and present. So it's going to be big. All right. And then, uh-oh, I guess missed my little guy. And then Shelby, if you would just spotlight me, that would be great. So then you can see everything. While she's doing that, I'm going to get started and thank you again for coming to my session. And my title is How to Reach and Teach All Students in an Inclusive Environment and Help Them Find Their Superpower. I'm going to also provide some strategies for working with students and specifically quite a few working with students with autism. In my setting, I have the majority of the students that I see are in the mod severe setting and they are students with autism. Let me get my thing going here. Shelby, do you think you can see if you can just spotlight myself?
You are spotlighted.
Okay, then I just see all of you. That's perfect.
You can change your view to.
I'm going to.
Okay.
Because I'm going to try to. I'm not sure I can. Oh, yes, I can. There we go. Perfect. So then I know if I'm in the way or not. So our learning objectives today is for us to get a better understanding of universal design for learning, UDL, and how that works, and to have the importance of establishing meaningful PE or meaningful experiences for all students as we work to create an inclusive environment. We want to be able to meet our students where they're at in a variety of settings. And then finally, developing foundational and gross motor skills along with game concepts in a cooperative learning environment. I have 3 areas I'm going to focus on. And the first is class community, where we're working on how to create that supportive, inclusive environment. Teaching using that UDL and also other ways that will help with our teaching, a few strategies in that. And then our third is the tips and strategies to reach our diverse learners. And I'm going to start out talking a little bit about what is inclusion. And I'm going to move myself, sorry. And making sure that we all see that inclusion is a philosophy, it is not a placement. And I think that once we see that it can be in any setting, as long as people understand that opportunity that it provides for the whole class and the benefits that it provides for everyone. And so this is one quote describing what inclusion is, an inclusive environment is, and I really like it, so I'm going to share this. For physical education to truly be inclusive, or truly inclusive, teachers must look beyond the common perception of disability and think about physical education as a diverse community of learners with various skill levels. And that was in 2007, but yet and so it's still something that we talk about now. And for me, that inclusion is, and I'm sorry, I got to keep moving myself, is creating an environment of respect, empathy, trust, and acceptance. It's a feeling of being included while including everyone. And here's a picture of us at the end of class. And just my friend Evan, who's got his arm around one of my students, just, shows how all of these pieces are in place in this class, because he feels comfortable with all his buddies. And if you peek up and see who that teacher is, I've had the privilege of one of my schools, I'm at 4 schools, is a Vintage Elementary School, and I taught with Terry Drain for 15 years, more. But so I've gained so much from that experience, and we're very proud of the integrated inclusive program that we created there and still have. When we look at our students, we celebrate all abilities, and these are just a few examples, and they just warm my heart when I see them, both in that in a PE class. In the middle picture, that student is giving one of my students the hand, and that's something that's done that really is a great opportunity for kids to celebrate what other students are doing in class. And Roshan had been, the young man giving the high five is letting my student Roshan know that he did a great job in class today during the activity they were doing. This is a great way to kind of provide that positive feedback and that peer modeling and support. Students at the beginning of class are either either their name is picked, but they are told that it is their job then to kind of pay attention to what's going on in class and be able to not only give out the hand as a high five to somebody in class, but also give the reason why you're giving out the hand. And I think that that's really embraced that community feeling. One other picture that I wanted to share was my kids in Special Olympics. That's something that we do all the sports, and this was a unified relay race. And the cool thing is this unified team that's on the left, those two are twin sisters, and one of them is in a special day class at a different same school. And so for them to be able to be on the same team, it was pretty special, and mom and dad and everybody was there for this event. So it's great to see. And this is just that quote that I think kind of sums it up well. A successful, inclusive environment creates a climate of cooperation and caring that values the process of problem solving and learning together. And I thought parachute's a great one. If everybody's working together, how great it is when we do all those different things with the parachute, and we can feel that it requires all of us working together for it. And that's what's required in our class. And in order for that to happen, we need to remember that everyone plays an important part in creating that inclusive environment. That general PE and adaptive PE teacher, if it's a co-taught class, I've had the benefit of that. I know there's many other models that are used, but the idea that there's the teacher, the student with different abilities, and as gen ed students, that part remains the same. And so we all have a job to do. And as the adapted PE teacher in the program that I have, 1 day a week, our students are in the integrated inclusive setting. And then 1 day a week, I see my students in a small group setting. And in that small group setting, I am working at that time to ways to bridge the learning and increase the participation for my students with different abilities. We practice our social skills, our taking turns, our following warm-ups and those type, and then priming the motor skills, and then also focusing on the behavior component. So for students that have challenges, just kind of having those reward systems, those things in place that move them through those non-preferred activities, and so then they become more practiced and become more willing and getting the benefits from it. And this all we practice it, and this promotes success within it. And I've just listed some of what I consider kind of the roles and responsibilities for the PE and the adaptive PE teacher when it's in a co-taught setting. And so if we kind of that first one, I think is the biggest one, is working together, sharing for the PE teacher, sharing her lesson and communicating with the AP specialist, just so that because then they're able to support the AP specialist, able to support the students and provide get that variety of equipment, have those accommodations and modifications. And we kind of go through those of what each one is responsible for, and it allows, and we obviously, there's gray areas, but it really allows for a more fluid and program, and this is what has worked for us. You might be a little different based off of what you have. And then where the general education students are. Let me see if I can move this up. Hold on, I'm just gonna, there you go. For our general education students, what they bring to the table is just being able to include all students and ask others to join the group. My students are not students that are going to initiate when we're looking for partners, or when we're going from small group, maybe down the road into middle school. But for the most part, I work with students in the mod severe set and that are in the mod severe setting and contain classrooms, and the majority of them are students with autism. Our general education students are to remember that the person is always more important than the game. This is usually something that's kind of in that elementary setting. It takes a little while for some kids versus others. And then knowing how to model that appropriate behavior. They're being a peer model, providing that, because my students are going to copy what the general ed peers are going to be doing. And to be leaders, kind, and caring. And then my students with the different abilities, they help to provide that purpose behind creating an inclusive environment, with their willingness to be a part of the class community. They're being an active participant, and I always call it that just right challenge, because we want to make sure that they're participating and they're being challenged. But it's that one where it's a little bit of a push, but they're feeling comfortable and confident enough to do that. And then for them to remain safe to self and others. And that relates more to that behavior, and we're working on those prosocial skills. I love the picture down below. It is of my middle school students, and we're in a unified basketball game, and Taylor is doing a great job just kind of coaching Eric towards the basket and and encouraging him to go, and Eric's making sure he's right there next to him. So it's really cool. The benefits, oh my gosh, there's so many benefits to providing an inclusive environment in a PE setting. And I've just listed a few, but I really think one of the big things is that it just doesn't stay, the benefits in that win-win situation of creating that class community just doesn't stay within that class community. Those friendships become seen in the school community. So at recess, those students, they know their names, and they're familiar with each other. So they'll ask them to join in some of the games if they're interested, and just developing those positive relationships and amongst other students and then with staff. And I really found that students with different abilities are often more motivated to learn and acquire skills. I think Kasha said in her session, and says, they don't want to hear me anymore. Yeah, it kind of becomes one of those things, the power of a peer. and their voice and their positivity and what they're showing does more than beyond than what I can ever do for them. And then working on students developing those prosocial skills, especially that taking turns and asking for equipment and just finding ways to be able to be a part of the class, and be with their behavior being something that is not impacting in a way that they can't be with the class. In our second area of focus, I'm going to look a little more at universal design for learning, UDL. And here's one example. This is a group juggling activity, and we're all in small groups. And my guy right there is trying to catch the ball, and it's a big deal that his arms are reaching beyond his body and stuff, but it's set up for everyone in that group to have success. And this is one way that Dylan can create success. All the students are sending it to the same person and then tossing it to the same person. So it is one that is a pattern. And based off the success, we're able to control the size that we want, if we want them closer or farther away, if we're using what type of balls and equipment we're using, and then if we're going to use more than one. As they get more success, a lot of the groups will add another ball in for this activity. And let me move myself. So what is UDL? It's a way of thinking about teaching and learning that helps give all students an equal opportunity to succeed. And this approach really offers that flexibility in ways students can access material, engage with it, and show what they know. And NICPAD and Dr. Lieberman created this just really awesome video. I'm going to share it, but I'm not going to expand it because I've had trouble bringing it back when I don't. So give it a listen, and it's a great video. Oh my gosh. And there it went. Let's get it back.
Universal design for learning in physical education. So what is universal design for learning? Every student learns and is motivated by different things, depending on their background, experience, successes, and interests. Universal design for learning, or UDL, supports the various ways that students receive, process, and express information. For example, a teacher may have second graders chase bubbles for a warm-up with music. Some students may find this challenging and fun. Others may find it dull and boring with no challenge. Yet some may be terrified of the noise, crowd, and running into people. This is where UDL comes in. Universal design for learning directs the creation of the learning experiences to proactively meet the needs of all students. The three main components of UDL. Multiple means of representation is the what of learning, how the information is given to students. Giving information to students is just the first part. Showing the material in many different ways ensures that all students will be able to make sense of the content. For example, you can use students for demonstration, show a video of the skill or sport practice, or demonstrate the skill or activity yourself with the students verbally following along. Multiple means of engagement is the why of learning. The first thing to consider in this area is reducing students' discomfort and distraction and urging each student to take risks without being forced out of their comfort zone. Utilizing strategies to get students excited about learning, to help them sustain interest in learning tasks, and to know and regulate themselves. Multiple means of action and expression is the how of learning. How can you assess what the students know? How physical action can be incorporated? How levels of support can be added? How knowledge and skills can be expressed? In this area, give options for students to express what they know and can do. For example, when assessing how fast students can move from point A to B, You can allow them to choose the distance and the way they want to move, who they want to move with, the music that is playing, and the goals that they set. Help students set goals, manage information, and teach students how to monitor their progress toward learning goals. Unique and important features of UDL. Universal design starts in the lesson planning phase. It's not something that is added after the lesson is created. The variations are embedded into the lessons from the start. The universally designed options are for every student, not just students with disabilities or those on 504 plans. For example, when teaching striking, give students choice for equipment or how to strike. Have high expectations for all students. Generalization of UDL. It is important for students to learn the curriculum using the UDL approach. It is important to remember that the students should also learn the traditional equipment and rules for each sport and activity. By learning the traditional equipment and rules, the students know what they need to advocate for when they are involved in community programming. To review, there are three main components of UDL: multiple means of representation, the what of learning; multiple means of engagement, the why of learning; multiple means of action and expression, the how of learning. UDL starts in the lesson planning phase, has high expectations for all students, and asks all students to learn traditional equipment and rules as well as the UDL approach. So now you know the basics of UDL. Try it out yourself.
Oop, wrong way, sorry. So universal design for learning, when we look at it for physical education, we're looking really at 4 areas, and that's under our where we can provide these options, and under rules, equipment, environment, and instructional and learning strategies. And they talked about quite a few of these in the video. And I consider this as our focus on individualized learning based on the accommodations and modifications we provide. And in all areas, I noticed that we're able to do that, and it really provides a success and opportunity for all students. I'm going to show you a little bit on games in a moment, and how I engage those principles. But I'm going to start first with 5 instructional and learning strategies that we use, and that I use that really work towards it, and possibly give you an idea for your classroom. In the beginning, one strategy is that simply stated information and rules, to making sure that we have something up there on the board so the students know what it is. And I really like the what are we learning, why are we learning it, and how will I know I've learned it. And that just writing that out on the board helps all students. Consistency and routine and schedule and warm-ups. It's really the schedule is a great reference for students to follow, but that routine piece really helps our students, especially our students with autism, just to know what the expectations are. Number 3 is allowing students extra time for transition and processing. And I really find whenever we're moving from one location to another location, or just from one activity to another activity, those transitions that other kids can easily go through, so many of my students have a lot of challenges, and some don't make it to that next activity because of that transition. If it's a little too quick, or if it moves us from outdoors to indoors and everything. So just really be aware of that piece. Sorry, I didn't see where I was. I was in the middle of the words. And we talked a little bit about that peer modeling, but wow, it is such a game changer. Here's my girl Vivi, and recently she had learned to jump up and down, and so we were working on jumping forward, and she was getting a little better. And then our gal Jasmine wanted to not just show her, but also celebrate what Vivi did. And so Vivi, she loved it. And I think we got several times during the class that day doing it. And then number 5 is teaching progressions and levels for learning, using those stations and small-sided games versus those large group activities. It really helps with more touches of the equipment, more opportunities, but also adjust the pace in making everyone successful in that small group setting, or when you're using stations, really gives that opportunity to not be overwhelmed for some of my students, and just is easier for students to learn. And to me, it's best practice the majority of the time. There are some large group activities, like when we do warm-ups, and we often do a chase and flee activity, that's with everyone. So it is, I don't mean not to do those, I just mean in the bulk of the learning lesson. And then for us to provide our students, all students, an opportunity to develop motor skills, we want to start by laying a solid foundation that helps to develop and maximize a child's gross motor skills potential. And so I am going to focus on these 4 foundational skills. And really, I have found that these over the years are frequently challenges my students have that hold them back from being able to be successful in developing their motor skills or to be able to play in activities. And so these are balance, visual tracking, motor planning, and body awareness. And these skills are related to perception, and that's how we take meaning from what we see, feel, and hear. And when they break down and they don't develop for some of our children, we would refer these to as perceptual disorders. And it becomes very difficult for them to focus on the development of these skills, when they're trying to learn these gross motor skills. But we have ways that we can help. So I just want to show you that building blocks piece of where this would follow. So developing those foundational skills that I just mentioned, and they're laying that groundwork. And then we build those locomotor and ball skills and gross motor skills, fundamental skills on top of it. So I wanted to share an example of ways that you can work to improve on foundational skills while working on gross motor skills. And I bet you you're gonna find that quite a few of them are things that you probably already do. But I just want to make sure that point them out, and might need to add a strategy or something that might help all the students be successful. So I'm going to use the example body awareness, and under the category of development, these are some ways that body awareness that we can work on this area. And really it starts, number 1, with warm-ups. Students are copying what the teacher, or if it's an older group, what the other students are doing, and so they're facing them, and that's a great one in itself. Activities is dance and copy is one. I know that I use a lot of DJ Rafi or just copying myself. Those you can kind of pace it and stuff, and the kids can have an opportunity to practice both a bit choreographed routines that they're copying, and then also and mirroring, but also making sure that you input some that are giving them exploration opportunities for them to find it, so then they can, find success in both avenues. Moving safely through the space. So this body awareness and spatial awareness is key. And this is obviously something that we do in our chase and flee games and other activities. And there are times when we're starting on an activity in chase and flee, and I'm giving those a rule modification for 1 or 2 of my students, saying that today they're not going to be tagged. We're just working on them moving safely from one area to the other. Because for some students, as soon as they know that the tagging stick, which is what we use to tag, is out, they're turning around. And so they might be successful moving forward, but as soon as they're turning around, they're bumping into others or not safely moving in their environment. A great activity also is the freeze tag, but it's that alphabet body tag. So when they're frozen, when they've been tagged, then they have to hold their position in a certain letter. So it's a great way for them to just practice that and have fun with it. And for our students that are having challenges of knowing where their arms are and where their, different body parts, this is a great way for them to practice that. Last one, tetherball. I think it's a great activity. It's a great activity to learn at recess, but it is really challenging if there are no visuals to help our students out. So the arrow for them to know, placed in front of them to know what direction they're going to be sending that ball. And then feet, poly spots. So they're not facing the pole and the ball is not hitting the pole, but they're facing sideways to the pole so that ball can go all the way around. It's also a great body or spatial awareness game activity. We start slow and build from there. Under remediation, we're working on just the progression of skills. And really, I think the biggest one is using a variety of equipment options, different sizes, what works for our students. Do they need it to be softer? Do they need it to be a little bit of grip in it? And so for some of them, that sensory seeking students and stuff, a lot of them, they're more interested in if they have that type of ball. And remediation, I call it table ball, and I'll share how to play that in a few minutes. But the best part about it is that ball is rolling on a solid surface. So it's much easier for our students to track and then work towards reaching their arms out to go for it. And then accommodations and modifications. I just wanted to share a few of them here. Let me move myself over. And that have really helped provide our students access to some of these movements that if you lack that body awareness in your arm, and you find students that when they're running, their arms are by their sides, having them get some running sticks or something that provides that proprioceptive input really can help them, using those swinging arms, and so they can feel their hands. And I know that seems odd maybe to some teachers and stuff until you realize that when their arms are down by the side and then all of a sudden you have a bucket and they in their hand for catching, and they always kept their arms to the side when the ball was coming towards them. When they feel that input, they now can understand where their hands are in space, and they now can move it. Otherwise, they will tend to keep their hands, if not by themselves, at least just trapping that ball to their body. But as we know, we're going to progress with, we want them to be able to be more successful than just a trap catch. We want them to work on catching with their hands and in space. You can use a bucket or a box in different ways for them to receive that input and reach out for it. Another way we talked about UDL, and another way we can use those 4 components in PE is a mini cooperative kickball game, and it's a small-sided game. And if you can look at the top, it says it's by Terry Drain. If you actually went to Terry's session yesterday, you would have heard her talk about it. And so I have created this little card that'll be a resource. So all the information on how to play this game is on it. I just want to highlight a few pieces to it. It is one of my favorite games because I am a testament of the success of my students, the engagement level, and the not only are they more engaged, but the duration that their engagement level is longer and longer. In this activity, it is a 4 versus 1. You have a kicker and 4 in the outfield, and the goal is when the kicker is, once they kicked it, they're running the bases as long as they can. They can go past home, and they're counting up each base equals 1 point, while the outfield is working on catching the ball. So one person catches it, and then each person in that group of 4 needs to catch and receive the ball. When the last person has caught the ball, then the outfield, they all call stop. And that becomes that piece of, if they're quicker with it, then the runner won't have as many bases. And then we rotate. This is an activity that every student in this game touches the ball, and that's awesome. But I think the really big takeaway here is that this is where the peers in general ed setting, and this is grades 2 and 3, really learns how to work with all the students. My students are not going to necessarily move closer to them. So when sometimes we'll help in the beginning, the first couple plays, and then we let the peers, and I have my paras, my instructional aides, move back, unless it's not safe to for some students that elope. They move back, and so the peers become that support piece where they have to figure out how can we be successful in getting the ball from me to to Abby. And so if he's not looking, what do I need to do? So then they have to, we've given them these cues, but they have to really call his name, making sure his hands are ready, and then moving closer. And so it's a great opportunity for students to get lots of practice of catching, lots of touches, but also a great opportunity for that cooperative piece. And so we're just finding ways for all students in this setting to be successful. And then the older kid version of this, the older grade, 4th and 5th, same concept starts, and we call it the all-in kickball. And this is, Terry also shared this one, and they're rolling the dice to determine what is if they have a challenge that they need to then demonstrate, and everyone needs to be able to allow happen. So the area of focus here is really on that cooperation, that communication about it, and really providing the accommodations and understanding. And the students for the first time really get to understand its purpose and to match with the challenge. They maybe have gotten pieces of it and they got it in 2nd and 3rd grade, but here is where I really see a lot of light bulbs going off for the students, where they really get to see like, oh, that's why we let William go, go a little slower. Some of may have gotten this, but not the majority. And so from this game, what tends to happen after they've played it a few times is when we do other small-sided games, such as the baseball or the softball, and they're hitting off the tee and running the bases, is you will see students after we've done these all-in kickball of making accommodations for my students. We're going to give them more time. We're going to hold on to the ball without us making anything, without us suggesting it. They are leading it. They are providing success for these students, no longer necessarily with the guidance every time from the teacher or the aide. And that's something that's a lifelong change. And that's the win-win in that inclusive setting. Another activity that's a great UDL type activity, I call it, is table ball. Any level, beginner, intermediate, advanced, can play it. There are many levels to this, and I've listed them below and the benefits of them. But my big one is starting in that beginner. I have students that have never done anything independently. They've never been able to grab at a ball or anything without a little bit of partial physical assistance. With table ball, I have students that in this opportunity have been able to be independent and be independent, passing it back and forth, rolling that ball. And the students at the beginning are trapping it, and then we're going to build at them working at then bouncing it and catching it. So to me, I saw this at Shape a few years back, and thought just a light bulb went off, like, this would really help my students. And so we've played this in small group setting, in an AP setting, but also in the PE. We're going to move on to how else can our students be successful? And I look at this confidence, competence in this this cycle that is we want to create for all students. And as they become more confident in what they're doing, it's usually because they've become more competent in the skill. And so that success, we measure that success by what, they're working on catching. How did that catching? Well, that might have been a ball that's rolled to them on a table. Well, from that success that they felt being more competent and at catching that ball when it's rolled on a table, they're feeling more confident. And then we can move to that next level and we can progress. And it is very much a part of and plays an important role in that ongoing cycle of skill development. When we talk about the kids feeling successful, I think of the learning roadmap because it's a great visual to help students see their progress. You can put magnets on it, with kids' numbers, and they can see how they move from level 1 of a not yet, if it's a new activity such as single jump rope, to getting there. And so there might be a rubric set out. So after you've done 10, and that's kind of that standard for the students. What is success for my student? It might be that he's got the rope to go over his head and he's stepping over it. It might be for them to be able to jump for the first time. Then they've just moved from not yet to getting there. So they get an opportunity to move that magnet. But what I've just found this is a great tool, and it's used in PE oftentimes in different activities. I've also seen it being used. Terry used it one time with working on cooperative skills for the students and with a rubric. And it was really helpful for those reluctant students in an inclusive setting that are not quite fully buying in, and they get an opportunity to see, what does it look like when we have a level 4 wow and cooperative skills? Are they doing all of it? And there's something written down there. And so it's a skill to practice. The last thing I'm going to say about this is the not yet. I have many students that come to me with I can't. And oftentimes these are my students that are either came from resource or have speech, and they are frustrated and they've come to me and they're like, oh yeah, they have a really hard time with, these skills. And if I'm not there because I'm at 4 schools, it becomes the first time I'm hearing about it. So by the time they come to me, they are not confident. They do not feel they have any competence in skills. And so they, are frustrated, and I can't becomes it. And being able to change that tape recorder in their head from I can't to not yet in itself is a positive moment. And then we go from there and we find those little successes, and we help them to getting there and to got it. And that's what we want. Here is another way that we can make sure that all students are included is by using the different learning styles to reach them. That visual, auditory, kinesthetic, that VAC model, that see it, say it, and do it. That's something that as teachers that we should be able to, when we're teaching a lesson, there should be elements of that in our lesson so that all students, all different learning styles can learn from what is being taught. That meaning, here is, I want to share a little bit about the purpose of creating meaningful experiences and how important it is. It's also sometimes referred to as meaningful PE. These are the 6 key areas that we want to make sure that we are touching in providing that for our students. And they, to me, represent teaching the whole child. That social interaction, having those just right challenges, that motor competence, making it personal, relevant learning for all the students. And then my favorite is the joy, because that one is so evident on their face and their body language when they have been successful, either as part of a team and a partner or with a skill that they've been working on. And they're just over the moon and excited for themselves. And they should be, but it's great to see. And that's why I often say I have the best job in the world. With that said, when we're APE and PE teachers, it is important to remember to provide students to learn and develop foundational and gross motor skills while providing that meaningful PE experiences. And I realize I'm almost out of time. So let me just go kind of quickly through here on my strategies. I do want to share, this is a picture of my unified basketball team. That social inclusion, nothing is better. The opportunities these kids had, and you can see they are a team right there. Communication in PE and adapted PE, those verbal directions are only temporary. When it is said, it is gone. So make sure that you're providing those visuals. Then that to me is the power of visuals. And here are a few examples. It can be an equalizer in communicating instruction and information to students. Here are some visuals during remote. Here are the GIFs that I created. And this was the different ways to do push-ups. And so my students could see which one they can do. And then I had separate slides, but it helped them to be able to continue to see how to do it. When I say, are you going to do a push-up? If I'm just saying it verbally, here's that visual. We're not going to have time, but boy, fitness was a great one during remote with all the different games and activities. And gamification is really a fun way for our students to focus more on playing the game than on the effort expended. Because sometimes they're like, that looks hard, but you put it in a game form, they no longer focusing on if it is hard. It's more a matter, ooh, I want to do this. And then developing those prosocial skills, practicing that cooperative skills, those taking turns, greeting, finding those partners. Those are really key skills that we really need to practice that muscle, that really is important, because we do know that behaviors can limit our students' opportunity to participate. So we want to make sure that we're providing support and remaining positive. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And this is just what are we working for card, especially for those non-preferred activities. And then we already talked about appropriate peer modeling, positive and encouraging. And there's a perfect example of our peer modeling. It took a while, almost a year for my student, the last one, to put her hands on other friends to participate in this game, in these kind of games. I've already talked about schedules and the importance of it, and how it really helps our students know what the expectations are and what we're learning and doing today. And then fitness and yoga. I think for our students with autism, not just them, but there are some key pieces to it. It provides structure and purpose to an area that students with ASD will initially avoid. But if you find ways to connect and make it fun and provide levels for all students to find success, they will embrace it and they will gain from it. And by the end of the school year, like I had, when I asked what fitness activity or what exercise do you want to do, I actually had my middle school students telling me once they wanted to do. And a few of them said an exercise, and another one said yoga. And that's amazing. During remote learning, all of my students I finished the class with yoga, and I really found how valuable it is. And I will make sure that that's something that I will be doing when we are back all together. It really helps develop that skills in the mindfulness and that breathing. It's really great at self-control, helping to calm, work on students to be able to calm and help self-regulate, and it improves that body awareness and balance. And I just keep it simple, keep the same moves, keep that routine, and then add on when the students are ready. But having those visuals for them, not just you, but maybe having a card with that yoga pose, I think really helps. Sensory rich environment, absolutely. Activate that proprioceptive and vestibular system. And then how are we all superhero teachers? How are we as teachers superheroes to all our students? By connecting, communicating, and teaching in a way that all students can learn and see the possibilities of what they can accomplish. And I'm sorry for rushing through this, guys, but I do want to make sure I get all of it, because this is my thing. This is the big ending. How do we help all our students find their superpower? Through meaningful experiences in an inclusive setting, we help them develop their competence and confidence in themselves, a cooperative spirit, compassion and kindness for others, and perspective and perception, that growth mindset. And this is for all our students. This is for our peers, but also for our students, for them to reach out and step out of their comfort zone. And I really want to thank you for attending my session today and for being a superhero. And also, I will add my resources in. I'm going to stop share to see if I'm the only one still left in the room. No, you guys are here. Thank you so much. I'm sorry that I went a little bit over. I'm hoping that you gained some nugget of information or idea and stuff. And don't know if I have time to look in the chat to see if there was any questions.
We did have one.
Cindy, how you doing?
Yes. What?
Am I frozen?
Nope, I can hear you. Hi, Karen. What? Oh, she must not have heard me. Yes, what was the one question, Shelby?
I think you touched base on this a little bit, but it was, how do you make your inclusion kids feel a part of their gen ed PE classes?
And I think it's just that community that you build, and those cooperative, those warm-up routines and those, activities that they're doing together, and definitely using that UDL approach. I will have that as part of a resource, the 2 games, along with ideas of how to work on the body awareness and everything. So
Awesome.
Thank you everyone for coming.
And the certificate is in the chat again.
Look, where's my fingers? There you go.
We do have another block of sessions at 10 o'clock Pacific time, as well as we have amazing panelists at 11 o'clock Pacific time this morning.
Yes.
I think some of you might even be on that panel. So
hey, raise your hand. You're on my panel. Yes, Jen and Kasha. Yes, absolutely. And I don't know if Kim's in the room and stuff. We're going to be adapted PE, so make sure that you go to the breakout one. Yes, question about the bucket activity. Oh, it is, it's just working on catching when you've got a object and they aren't catching beyond. I'm thinking that's what you're talking about, Karen. If you're holding an object, here is my slipper, and all of a sudden the ball comes, they have this input from their hands that all of a sudden they realize they have arms that can reach out in space. Where if they don't have that ability and if they lack that body awareness, they don't know where their hands in space are, if they're above their heads or below. That's what I use that bucket for. It provides that proprioceptive input. I'm hoping that's what I got from you, Karen. If not, you know how you can get a hold of me.
all right. Thank you everyone for being here, and we look forward to seeing you later today. As well as we also have a social, I didn't mention that, but bingo tonight. So virtual.
Perfect.
That should be a lot of fun.
Hey, Dane, he made it.
Wow, great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Dane is one of my awesome instructional aides that's also working to be a teacher and an adapted PE specialist. He and stuff. So yeah, I know we're out, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending the 48th Annual Elementary Physical Education Workshop. We're glad you were here.
Please follow us on our social media platforms. EPEW can be found on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Please check out our website for links to more great sessions. Just go to epew-cp.weebly.com and click on the virtual EPEW 2021 tab at the top and scroll down.
EPEW 2021 Educators Assemble would not be possible without the support and dedication from the amazing EPEW committee. The committee has been hard at work for months preparing for this workshop. Thank you to Linda McGee, Barbara Gratton, Scott Wilson, Stephanie Sandino, Julie Miller, Jessica Monlux, Kayla Ailman, Shelby Lozano, Andrea Chavez, Scott Townsend, and Cindi Chase.
Thank you for attending EPEW, where our motto is, come to learn, leave as family.